Hello everyone, Victoria from Writing Elephant, and today I'm reviewing June by Miranda Beverly-Whittemore. Now, I received this book from Penguin Random House for their blogging for books. Not something I normally would have picked up for myself, but I absolutely fell in love. So let's get to it. So we start off with the main character, Cassie, and she's in an abandoned house that was owned by her grandmother, June. The whole story takes place between present day and 1955. The main reason for this is Cassie is named the sole heir to Jack Montgomery's multi-million-dollar fortune, and his daughter Tate is a little pissed. So, and it gets into that, and it gets into the June and Lindy and Jack relationship. I'll explain who Lindy is in a minute. And then it also goes between Cassie, Tate, and her love interest, Nick, and how all of this plays into these two different timelines. I will say this, is that Miranda Beverly-Whittemore, her writing is very flowery, very prosy, but it's not so much that you're like, okay, Edgar Allan Poe, give me some substance. It's just enough to get you through the boring moments, I'm walking down a flight of stairs. Instead, she'll give detail on the actual flight of stairs, how they're crumbling, how they're shiny, how the banister is prickly, stuff like that. Beverly-Whittemore is great at that. Now, it does jump from 1950 to present, and it's more like present to 1950 and then back and forth. And it's not like one chapter is present, one chapter is 1950. It could be 4 or 5 chapters are 1950, 2 to 3 chapters are present, or one chapter is present, then it goes back to 1950. It depends on where the story is. So the main focus, at least for me, was on the June and Jack story. There's a character in there named Lindy who's kind of your narrator. It's mostly from her perspective. So instead of being from June's perspective, it's from Lindy's perspective, who is pretty much in love with June. And this is before she realizes that she is a lesbian, she is queer, and it's before it became pretty normal. And I actually liked that Beverly-Whittemore did that with a character, turned her LGBTQ. And Lindy was a great character for that because she had this nice rough edge, and she had she had some sass to her. So that way, when you go back into 1955, you have somebody to look forward to, because June's kind of boring. But the story of how June and Jack met was really, really good. St. Jude is the set for where Jack is filming, and that's how he meets June. She walks to go meet her fiance, who never shows up, and then Jack sees June and falls in love with June, just from it's kind of like a love at first sight type of deal. But things get really, really twisted when Tate's mother gets involved. And that's a whole nother thing, and I don't want to really spoil it because it's a lot of fun to read. You're I did not put this book down. I will say that. The week I got married is when I originally read this book. So apologies, I'm doing the review now on YouTube, but I will link below the original impressions I had with the book from my blog. So that'll be down in the link down below. But what I loved about this book is that I didn't want to put it down. I flew through chapter to chapter to chapter. There were some sections where I was like, where are we going with this? But then she pulled me right back in, which was great. I will say this is the focus, at least for me, was more on, again, the Jack and June story with Lindy, and that the Tate and Cassie story kind of felt short. It didn't have enough detail for me. I couldn't really get into. I loved Cassie as a character. I loved Tate's character. I loved Nick's character. But their story didn't hold enough substance, I felt. And if you've read this book, please feel free to comment below, but I just didn't feel like it was enough. June could have been written completely from Lindy's perspective on how, on just that entire summer. This whole book could have been that summer in greater detail than what was given by Beverly-Whittemore. That being said, I did like the contrast between the two stories, because there are sections where you're like, okay, June, Lindy, get to the point. I want something more, and then she'll switch back to the present, and you'll see how it's affecting the modern people, Tate and Cassie, because it was June's decisions that impacted Tate to come to St. Jude. She's a big Hollywood actor. Who the hell goes to the middle of nowhere just to get a DNA test? Only when their inheritance is on the line. So it was interesting. It just didn't hold as much attention as the June story, the 1955 story. I have to say though, this author did a ton of research. Like in the back of the book, there is at least a page, like teeny tiny font, of just all her resources that you can go and you can look at and you can see how she got her material. And it's very informative when she goes back to 1955. Like when Beverly Whittemore goes back to 1955, you can see very chronologically how she had pieced a lot of things together and how she had kept it historically accurate. Because that's a very hard thing to do with something so close. We assume that we know what 1955 would look like and how it would be and how people would act, but in reality we have no clue. So that was very good to see that she had the research and she had everything like that. So this was my first Blogging for Books book from Penguin Random House. I do have one more to do, and then I hope to get that website back up and running for myself so I can get more and I can do more. That way I can bring you guys some new content before it's released, and that way you can see if you like it. I do highly recommend this book because it was just a quick read. It was very informative. I liked the prose. The characters were great. Like I said, there were some things where you were kind of like, this could have held its own a little bit. Some things fell a little flat, some things didn't. You can kind of be like, most books have things that fall flat, some things that are more highlighted than others. But for the most part, I absolutely loved this book. I highly recommend it. I'm probably going to let my mother-in-law borrow it because it was really good. This book happens to be published by Crown, which is a subsidy of Penguin Random House. And their quality of book, this is a more adult book. The text is a little thick. For most, especially if you read YA a lot, this is a little thick, but it reads like YA. It reads like young adult, except for a few cuss words here and there. But the quality of the book is really good. I like this rough-edged book look. The quality of the cover is great. I absolutely love this book. I cannot wait to see what you guys think. If you have read the book by Miranda Beverly-Whittemore, please leave a comment below. I'd love to see what you thought. I personally like this book and I do highly recommend it. As always, like, subscribe, follow me on all my social media, and I'll see you later. Bye!